What's good, folks? It's your man, Donald King. Usually I try and do 2 podcasts a week. I try and shoot for Monday and Wednesday around 6 and 7, but this week I have been very busy. I have not had much time to devote to podcasting, but again, I'm out here trying to put out as many principles as I can. I see things through this perspective that's been afforded to me, and well, I do what I can to try and help people come to understand the things that I see, especially given the fact that part of what I see through this perspective makes me understand that everybody needs to understand the things that I see. It's weird. It's paradoxical. But yeah, man, that's what it is. As always, I'm shooting from the hip with this. I'm reading principles in real time, so some of the words that I choose might fall just short of, I guess, the word you probably feel I should have chosen to describe given principle in the moment, but we'll have at it. That's what I like to do. So, tonight we want to talk about competition. In my last podcast, I was talking about the Black community. I was talking about, the greatest obstacles that Black people face in society, and the majority of those things they fall back to this idea that we're sort of conditioned to prioritize competition over cooperation. All right. So it's what people commonly refer to as the crabs in the barrel mentality. It's like, and I don't know if you've ever seen crabs in a barrel, but, instead of working cooperatively to sort of get out and one person or one crab get to the top and reach down and pull some other crab up with it, it's like, it's me first, me first, me first, me first, me first. That's essentially the sort of root paradigm that gets attributed to Black people, especially within poorer socioeconomic climates. All right. So prioritizing competition over cooperation. You see, you can't build families. You can't build futures. You can't build empires. You can't build anything with anyone who you perceive as a rival and or as a threat. Competition is in essence attempting to dominate. When you're viewing a competition, you're always trying to see who will dominate the other. Who is the authority? Oftentimes you'll see me in my posts talking about people coming to my posts trying to assert authority. And what I mean by that is they come there trying to compete against me. They're not trying to understand what the hell I'm talking about. They generally don't understand what I'm talking about. They're usually trying to steer the conversation into a wheelhouse wherein they feel their authority. They're a type of authority. So it's like if I'm just speaking in general, some douchebag will come along trying to assert philosophical authority. They're trying to compete against me. Why? Because they want to dominate me. Okay? That's like the majority of, that's pretty much all of the interaction that you see me have online where there's any sort of contention or animus involved. It's always some asshole coming to me trying to compete, trying to dominate me. That's where everything gets tricky. You see? Because what most people do not know, what most humans don't know, is that competition in itself is a type of addiction. It's an addiction. Okay? So, for instance, you know how people say that gamblers can become addicts? What are they addicted to, really? They're addicted to gaming, but what is gaming but competition? They're addicted to competition. They're addicted to dominating the odds and dominating over other people. It's what I refer to in my work as a conceptual substance. So, as I mentioned in my last video, there is a trinity there's a perceptual trinity that necessarily applies to all organisms that operate on a corrupt mode and or on the parasitic mode. And that is aggression, competition, and narcissism. They are triune. They are mutually inclusive. Everything boils down to trying to capture and or assert authority and impose will on to others. Now, when you assert authority or when you capture authority from someone else, in essence, you get a chemical high. It's a type of accomplishment. You ever, let's look at any other sort of accomplishment you might do throughout the course of the day. Let's say that you went out and, I don't know, built something, right? And it was something that you needed to build, so you checked it off of a list. Well, that accomplishment, it sort of imbued you with a sense of authority. You dominated it. When you dominated it, your autonomic nervous system, it triggered your body in such a way that it gave you a serotonin boost. It gave you a serotonin boost, and the ego parasite, which is hardwired into your mental hardware and spread throughout the autonomic nervous system, it got to feed off of your body, producing a type of chemical that, well, basically it loves. Not only does it love it, but it subsists on it as well. So this goes into the subject of what is addiction. All right. This is a point that I've covered in my work quite often. What humans refer to as the ego is actually a physical parasite that's concentrated within the frontal lobes regions and spread throughout the autonomic nervous system. This parasite, it feeds on hormones and neurotransmitters produced by the human body, like from the hypothalamus and shit and through the gut. Okay, so the ego parasite, it's like a secondary, it is a secondary organism within inside of your body, but its mental hardware is sort of integrated with yours, so you can't tell the difference between what it wants and what you want. It's plugged into your brain. Now, the ego houses the phenomenon humans refer to as perception. Okay? So I want you to think about it like this. Okay? Perception is the sort of thought process and the sort of mental hardware of this ego parasite, which is, again, sort of integrated into your own mental hardware. And basically what it does is it's like it allows the ego to basically remote control you, steer you into indulging in substances and behaviors that will force your body to produce higher levels of hormones and neurotransmitters for it to subsist on. That's the way it works mechanically. So let's say you believe that you're horny, right? Let's say that you're horny. Well, it's actually a bug inside of your brain skewing reality and telling you, hey, you need to go and get some sex, because it's like, I want that oxytocin and vasopressin. I need that. You want sex right now. And then you go out and you pursue sex. Or you jack off or whatever. Let's say it wants insulin. Okay? So then it'll skew your perception and or apperception to make you believe that you want sweet and fatty foods so that your body's going to produce higher levels of insulin. This is the way that it works at a mechanical level. Perception and the authentic perspective, these are mutually exclusive things. But since, again, the ego is a parasite and it's sort of hardwired into your mental hardware, you can't tell the difference between what it wants and what you want. Enter the concept of addiction. What is addiction? Addiction is a secondary hunger. Addiction is a secondary hunger. It's the hunger of the ego parasite. All right? So let's say the ego parasite is like, yo, I like that feeling. I like all that food you supplied me with when you got high on crack. I want more of that. And what it can do is it can skew your apperception to make you believe that you're going to die unless you get more crack. See, the problem with being a parasite, the problem with the parasite and or host dynamic is a parasite will burn through a host. A parasite will burn through a host just trying to satisfy its own wishes, desires, and needs. Ego parasite doesn't give a shit about you. If it doesn't like you, it doesn't like your social status, and it doesn't like your ability to capture resources from society towards acquiring comforts that are going to stimulate your body to produce more hormones and neurotransmitters for it to subsist on, it'll literally make you commit suicide. In the same way that you would throw away something that you think isn't serving you. You get a computer makes you mad and you'll smash it on the ground. That's what happens with suicide. The ego parasite inside the human is like, fuck you. You're not giving me enough food. I'm pissed. I'm going to take my anger and frustration out on you. I'm going to weaponize your apperception against you and make you kill yourself. Again, this is the reason why you guys need to understand all of this. Again, we're getting back to the subject of addiction. Addiction is a secondary hunger. It's a secondary hunger. So, why is that important to understand? Well, the ego can't consume directly. It has to use you to create food for itself from within the circumstances you live through. All right? And it just wants to consume. Parasites consume blindly. So once the ego gets a taste of something it likes, it's like, yeah, do that. Keep doing that. And it'll literally feed itself to death and destroy the human host in the process. Which brings us right back to the point of competition. Conceptual substances. Conceptual substances are phenomena or effects that the apperception takes in, which ultimately trigger the body via the autonomic nervous system to produce hormones and neurotransmitters. The reason why a person can get addicted to porn is because it triggers the seeing visual sexual stimulation or seeing visual representations of sexual stimulation. It triggers the autonomic nervous system to start producing oxytocin and vasopressin. And the motherfucking ego parasite is like, oh, I need that. You're going to keep doing that shit. The reason why people are addicted to narcissism is because it produces high levels of serotonin and I guess to some degree oxytocin, but more along the lines of dopamine. Self-idealizing it produces dopamine. And the fucking ego parasite is like, oh, I need that. Aggression. It produces, what is that? Epinephrine and norepinephrine and possibly cortisol. It's like, oh, I need that. And it'll burn through the human host just trying to get something to snack on. Just trying to get something to snack on. Because parasites don't fucking care about you. You are not the star to the parasite. The parasite is the star. Just like parasitic individuals, narcissists, they don't give a shit about you. You're an extension of their desires. You're an extension of their comfort. They will burn through you in order to get what they want. This is how parasitism works as a phenomenon, right? Enter the subject of competition. Humans are addicted to authority. Competition is a facilitator of authority. All right? So, if you look at something like money, what is money? Money is liquid authority, which raises the question, what is authority? Authority is the ability to determine meanings, order, and the outcome of events. Authority is the right to dominate and exploit and take from others. So you see all these authority addicts out here, narcissists or authority addicts. Only thing they try to do is go around trying to capture authority from others and or compete. It's a fucking addiction. Competition is an addiction. I bring it back to my posts because you see all these ignorant assholes come to my posts trying to compete against what I say. There is no fault in what I'm saying because I'm not working through systems of belief or idealism. I'm not describing my feelings. I'm describing what I see. What I see has proven consistent across the board. Like regardless of how you might feel about me as a person, the only reason we're friends is because at the core of what you are, you know I'm correct. You know that how I see reality is correct. I'm synced up with reality. My thinking is balanced. It's not a brag. I'm not the reason for it. But at the end of the day, when you witness me do what I do, regardless of how you might feel about me, you know that I'm correct. Like the knowledge, the understanding that I'm correct, it doesn't appeal to your ego. It appeals to your most natural self. That's why you're still here. But that doesn't stop narcissists from coming along trying to compete. When you understand that competition is an addiction, then you see these people coming to me trying to get high. Trying to get high off trying to assert authority over Donald King and or capture authority, dominate him. It never works, but if you, I don't know, if you're a crackhead and someone has the biggest fucking crack rock you've ever seen dangling over a pit of lava, if you want it enough, you're going to try, regardless of how many people fall into the lava before you. Because that's what addiction does. You know, one of the most fucked up things about all this is that none of this is anybody's fault. Like when I first became imbued with this perspective and I was allowed to see reality in the way that I do, my first, it's like I wrote my first book, right? And the first book I wrote, it was all caps and it was angry and it was mad because it's like when you can see behind the fabric of everything going on in society and you see all of the corruption and all of the like fucking, like you have to be when you can see what certain individuals and groups of people are actually doing in perfect pitch and clear terms, you get pissed. You're like, yo, man, what the fuck is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? You get angry. And then you get a little bit of distance and perspective and you fall back. And you see that all of these people are just like you in the sense that they're products of circumstances and situations they were simply born into. All of us were born into a race. We're born into a race, and We just got dropped in the middle of it. Those who were in front were given a baton. They were told to run and to keep those who were behind them from catching up to them and surpassing them. And those who were born behind were given a baton and told that they had to catch up to and surpass those in front. But we didn't choose the race. We were born into a circumstance. And if you think through a competitive mind, if you get lost in the ideologue mindset, then it's very easy to focus exclusively on the contest, on the competition, on dominating others, and even easier to lose sight of the fact that you never chose the race and you don't know what's at the fucking finish line when you cross it. It's no one's fault we were born into this circumstance. So even when we look at all, like some of the more disgusting people doing some of the more disgusting things in society, they're products of a circumstance they didn't choose. Now, the problem with that is reality interjects, reality intervenes, what humans call intuition. All right, so intuition, how would I describe that? It's sort of like an invisible umbilical cord that connects you to the system of reality itself. If you're synced up with reality, then the connection is strong. It's like a fucking Wi-Fi, right? If you're connected to reality, then reality is continually imbuing you with understanding and awareness for how you exist in relation to it as a system and the types of impacts that you're making on the system, and then how to reverse, negative impacts that you made so that it's like you can sort of stay synced up and calibrated with the system at large. But the more given to the inner story you are, is the more disconnected from reality you are and the less your sense of intuition works. However, every single person, regardless of how corrupt they are, they get messages from reality like, stop. That's not the move. Move here. Pay attention here. The thing that makes people stick around and listen to me and my dumbass is they get an intuitive connection. They get an intuitive message from reality that says, you need to pay attention to this man. Now, their social self, it might get in the way. They might be like, hey, fuck him, Donald King, I hate him, he's a nigger, he's black, he doesn't have hair, he talks like he's, right? But at the core of what they are, the core of what all of you are, I'm legit. I'm synced up with reality. I mention this because at the end of the day, the more you compete is the more you become aggressive. The more aggressive you become is the more narcissistic you become, and the more narcissistic you become is the more dialed into the inner story you become. You see, again, this trinity, aggression, competition, narcissism. These are the three main components of the internal narrative. And the more you practice one is the more you practice the other two. And the more you practice all three is the more given to the inner story you are. And the more given to the inner story you are is the more you block out reality in order to preserve this inner story. But all of it is based in addiction. You get a chemical reward for self-idealizing. You get a chemical reward for competing and winning. You get a chemical reward for being aggressive. You're fucking tweaking. You're tweaking. Even the people who are at the top of society right now trying to move their little plans forward to a point of completion, they're tweaking. They're getting high and trying to score a bigger high. Trying to capture all that authority. Right? Tweaking. If you don't approach competition like it's an addiction, then you'll go on thinking that it's a normal, everyday part of life. And, it's like, and it seems like a normal part, everyday part of life in the same way that, we think, anything we perceive in nature, wherein an animal does something even remotely close to what we do, it makes us believe that our behaviors are natural and normal. You'll see two rams battling it out for reasons that we can only assume based on how we project our own value systems onto their customs as a species. But at the end of the day, we're like, oh, they're competing, so competing's natural. They're competing, so competing's natural. In the same way that I guess a meth head would look at someone eating food and they would be like, oh, they're getting pleasure out of what they're eating, so taking substances that are pleasurable is natural. This is the way that it works, man. This is the way that it works. I don't know if anybody's on here with me tonight, but, I just wanted to, again, I'm sorry that I missed my podcast last night, but the main thing that we want to do is help people start to gain an understanding for how this shit works mechanically, because, again, if you don't understand how it works mechanically and you're only approaching it from a sort of perceptual outlook, of course, how things presently are seem normal. We think that everything is based in competition. We think authority makes sense when it does. It only exists in idealism. I wanted to actually get into the subject of depression tonight, but I guess I'll have to save that for the next go round. But, it's like, you know what? Actually, I can add it as an addendum. When we're talking about this ego parasite, and this ego parasite subsisting on hormones and neurotransmitters produced by the human body, what humans refer to as depression and boredom is basically the ego parasite telling the human host, I'm hungry. Feed me, Seymour. Feed me. You're bored. Hey, whenever you're feeling bored, the ego parasite is basically saying, dog, you need to indulge in something that's going to up your chemical production so that I can eat. When you're depressed, it's because your apperception is teetering and your ego is trying to get a perceptual lock on the world around it, because it's like it can't make sense of things, which is what cognitive dissonance actually is. And what cognitive dissonance and or what aggression is, right? And, it's like, hey, I can't make sense of things. And while I'm trying to make sense of things, I'm burning through all these hormones and neurotransmitters. I'm burning through my food supply. You need to do something now to produce more chemicals so that I can be okay. It's the way it works. Depression is a starving ego parasite imposing its sense of, it's imposing pressure or putting pressure on the human to do things to up their chemical output. Which is why people go around all the time tweaking off of authority. Going around trying to police people on the internet. Trying to start fights because it's like they want that fix. It's the way it works mechanically. As long as you're tweaking, you're lost in the inner story. In the same way that a person who's high on methamphetamine or heroin, they're lost in their inner story. You sit here and it's like, you ever see a crackhead dancing on the corner? You're like, what the fuck is your life? What is happening inside your head, man? Where is the music? And they're just doing it. It's having fun. They're lost in the inner story. Every time you're addicted to anything, your ego parasite has cast a spell of perception wherein you can't tell the difference between what's happening in reality and or in the world around you, and what's happening in the inner story. It's all mechanical. It all links together. You have to stop indulging in things that exacerbate narcissism. Because when it exacerbates narcissism, it exacerbates aggression and it exacerbates competition simultaneously. And all of that shit draws you deeper down into the internal narrative. And the more you're in the internal narrative, is the more disconnected from reality you become. All mechanical. Like it, love it, hate it. It doesn't change what it is or how it works. So yes, I think I come to a close on this one. Again, shooting from the hips. I like watching these back to see how dialed in I was when I was explaining these principles. I hope to do as best I can, but guys, I'm not fucking around. I'm not joking with you. You need to know this stuff. I know that you know what? If I were an outside perceiver, and I saw someone come along who is or performed in a capacity similar to the one that I work in right now, I know that I would be very skeptical too. I know that it's like, I would be very doubtful. And, I might take issue with the individual for saying things that threatened or undermined my inner story or made me have to second guess my value and place within life and within the world. But even your best science verifies all the stuff that I'm saying right now. Your very best discovery verifies what I've been saying the entire time. You're going to have to put your pride down and you're going to have to step up and try and understand, man, because, again, just based on what I see, y'all need to know this. You need to know this. You can't go on tweaking forever, man. Narcissism, vanity, it'll get you fucked up, man. Like, reality, again, it's a system. That system has rules that have absolutely nothing to do with the agreements humans come up with between themselves or the rules they arbitrarily make up in their own minds and through their own imaginations. When you're out of sync with reality and you go around fucking things up in reality because you're so tuned out that you don't understand the types of impacts you make on reality and the systems you perform within, you incur debts to the system of reality that are very, very steep. You need to stop tweaking, dog. Reality isn't about you or your inner story. You're never going to make all of reality fit into the stories you define yourself by and want to believe. And most importantly, you are never fit to compete against reality. You're not fit to compete against reality. You're not fit to compete against truth. You're just not. You should know that. That's not even hard to fucking work out. You can figure that shit out. Just name one person who's ever competed against truth in one. Stop exacerbating your narcissism. Stop competing all the time. Stop consuming a bunch of media that focuses exclusively on competition and on self-idealizing and on aggression. Stop hanging around people who encourage the same things. You get yourself fucked up. Don't come around trying to compete against people who threaten your sense of value and self-worth. They might be saying things that you need to understand, and you'll never understand them if the only thing you want to do is compete. It's not hard to understand. If a teacher is in front of a classroom trying to teach you how to fucking skydive, or like let's say you're in a plane and the teacher's trying to teach you how to skydive, then isn't the time to try and compete for attention. Especially if you know that you have to jump out of the plane. At any rate, I Appreciate you all, obviously. I am Donald King. I'm Avatar Cycle 13. Oddly enough. It's weird. Again, before this became my life, I thought people who believed in this stuff were stupid. I used to go around clowning them all the time. I used to actually be a narcissistic asshole who believed that anyone whose life experience was even slightly different from mine was delusional or crazy or defective somehow. Now here I am on the back end, I guess being that to so many people who aren't willing to consider the things that I'm saying. But even in that, nothing changes. You got to get her done, man. I got to say all this stuff. And back to the point that I was making and all that, Avatar Cycle 13. For some reason, it's like I'm Cycle 13. I don't even understand how that shit works, but it is what it is. You know, I have to tell you about the time that it's like, you know, I had my vision where I met the other avatars. Yeah, I get visions and shit like that. It's crazy. It's astral project, whole nine. It sounds stupid. I know it sounds stupid. I know it sounds crazy, but it's my life. It's a fucking comic book. What are you gonna do? But yeah, man. Avatar Cycle 13. If you want to see me continue to share these principles and try and build it up to a larger platform, obviously you can always join the Patreon family. You can also cash at me, Donnie King, if you get any sort of benefit from these podcasts and you just want to show your boys some love. Again, everything goes towards, building this up to a larger platform because I'm trying to help as many people as I can understand these principles before, you know, my time in this shell is up. And I return back to the bliss. Oh my God, dude, if y'all make it into heaven, dog. Woo! I was talking to my homeboy about this the other day. It's like, man, that bliss is so clean. I remember when I went there, I had no idea that, I had no idea it was going to feel that good. Like, okay, so first of all, the human experience, it's a muted effect. It's muted. So everything that you experience within flesh, it's like super compressed. It's down. When you're outside of flesh, your consciousness is like super expanded. So it's like the peaks are like that high and the bottoms are like low. And right here, we're operating within this tiny minuscule realm of experience and I guess awareness. But it's like when you're out of this, that's when you get to, man, oh my God, the bliss of heaven. Are you serious? It's like, it's the best high. It's so good. And it's like, you know, I love sex. I love sex, but yeah, it's like you could take the best of every orgasm every person's ever encountered in the history of the planet. And like even the best highs that people get from all the drugs. I'm not a drug dude. It's like, you know, I've done some weed in the past, you know what I'm saying? But, and it all pales in comparison. It just pales like, man, I can't wait to get home. But anyway, yo, hey, hopefully y'all got something out of this, man. If you tuned in, it's like, you know, I appreciate you. Thank you kindly. Yo, I got much love for y'all. Do what you do, and I will catch you next time. It's your boy Donald King signing out. Y'all have a wonderful night. All right.